Welcome to Candlewick Library. I'm Cheryl, and today I'm going to share what I read in February. I started out February reaching one of my goals for 2026, which was to finally finish my reread of the Twilight series. So I read New Moon, Eclipse, and Breaking Dawn. So I would talk more about how I felt about that reread, except that because of all of the thoughts I was having while I was reading it, I decided to do an entire video. So I already filmed that. It will probably be coming up on the channel in April. And so that will have all of my thoughts on the series as a whole, but mainly those three books. And so I will just say on here for the review of it that I enjoyed reading them again. It's very nostalgic and fun to read. They're quick, fast paced, exciting books for the most part. I care about the characters and what happens to them, but I definitely had a lot of negative thoughts and some positive thoughts that I wanted to really flesh out in a longer video. So if you care about it, stay tuned for that. For my American Literature course and for the Read the Classics challenge for Anne in Search of Wonder for February, I read James Thurber's Secret Lives. This had The Secret Lives of Walter Mitty and The Secret Life of James Thurber. The prompt for it was a funny book. And so I picked this thinking that I would think it was really funny because the movie, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies. And I think it's funny. I mean, it's also serious in some places, but there are parts that are funny. I was very underwhelmed with this book. It's very short. The only thing that Walter Mitty really has in common with the Walter Mitty of the movie, or I guess I should say it the other way around since that was supposed to be based on this, is that his name is Walter Mitty and that he daydreams about doing things he's not doing. I felt like both of the stories in this were half completed. I didn't feel like they were fully fleshed out. I didn't feel like I got a really good feel for anybody or anything. This will be added to my list of movies that's, pretty small, but movies that I think are better than the book they were based on. I have to say that with this one. Then I read Mark of the Thief by Jennifer A. Nielsen. I was reading this for my Jurassic Reading Challenge for February, being a part of a trilogy. This is the first in a trilogy. And this is the one trilogy that I had not read yet by Jennifer Nielsen. My daughter had read it and really recommended it. This takes place in Roman times. And this is Nick, a slave in the mines outside of Rome, is forced to enter a sealed cavern containing the lost treasures of Julius Caesar. He finds much more than gold and gemstones. He discovers an ancient bulla, an amulet that belonged to the great Caesar, filled with a magic once reserved for the gods, magic some Romans would kill for. He uncovers a conspiracy to try to overthrow the emperor. He has to fight in an arena. It was really interesting. And I have not read very many books, especially like this, that take place in this time period. So I'm definitely going to continue on with this trilogy. I don't know how soon I'm going to get to book 2 and 3, probably this summer, but I did really enjoy it. And I think that if you're interested in that time period, I think that you would enjoy it, especially if you've read Jennifer Nielsen's books and enjoyed them before. In the February readathon with retelling that I had at least one I wanted to read. I did end up reading two, actually, but it was kind of an accident. And the first one I read was Beyond Ivy Walls by Rachel Fordham. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but it does say on the back, reminiscent of Beauty and the Beast. A recluse and a young woman discovered that the scars of life are no match against an act of love. In this, a girl is in this town and she doesn't have any money. She's trying to help her family and send money home, and she's kind of camped out, basically homeless, in this outbuilding of this manor. And the guy that lives there, who would be the Beast character, he finds out she's there. They end up getting her to come and work at the house, and then it goes on from there. So you've got the family that needs her to help. And there are a lot of things that just they don't feel Beauty and the Beast at all. But the characters themselves, especially the man, has scars. His father rejected him for his appearance and the scars that came with it. His version of the Beast is less about his behavior as it is about his appearance. It doesn't feel like a direct retelling of it, to me at least. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to, and in fact, I will just say right now that this ended up being my favorite read of February. Right after that, I read To Love a Beast by Karen Witemeyer, and this one I've been looking at buying for a very long time, and I've just kept putting it off because I read one other retelling, the Snow White one. I can't remember what it's called. I read that one a few years ago and I liked it, but there were a lot of things I didn't like about it. But then Anne in Search of Wonder, she mentioned something in the book and asked if that was what I didn't like about it. And I said, yes, that was the main reason. And she said this one wasn't like that. So I decided I was going to go ahead and give it a chance, because Beauty and the Beast is my favorite. The Disney Beauty and the Beast movie, both the animation and the live action. I know a lot of people don't like the live action, but I loved it. I love both. So I definitely get excited about a Beauty and the Beast storyline. This one was the exact opposite of Beyond Ivy Walls. This was a very on the nose Beauty and the Beast retelling. It had lines in it that were almost straight from the Disney movie. And I should say that, definitely on the Disney movie, not like the original fairy tale. While Beyond Ivy Walls is more subtle, this one was very obvious. One of the characters said to the guy, "Every guy wants to be you," although he wasn't talking to the Gaston type character, he was talking to the Beast character at that time. In this one, her dad binds books and he is injured, so she goes to the manor that he's supposed to go work on in this library. And she, at first the guy doesn't want her to stay, but then she is able to stay and be the one that is rebinding all of these books. And so you have the Belle, who loves books, is in the library. You have the Beast-like character, the Gaston type character. With the Gaston character, he even says at some point that he decorates with antlers. We have a Mrs. Potts character named Mrs. Potter. It was a little bit cheesy at some parts, but not in a way that turned me away from it, and not in a way that I couldn't enjoy. So I thought this was a really fun retelling, especially if you do want something that is a very obvious retelling. I thought her writing in it was good. I thought that the story was good. I liked the characters. It's a very fun retelling. And then with my daughter over the last couple of months in school for our humanities course, we've been reading the Iliad by Homer. I read this in my humanities class in high school, and I remember really enjoying the Iliad and the Odyssey and the Aeneid, but I don't remember what translations we used. And so I had a hard time trying to figure out which one I should do with her. I picked this one up at Barnes & Noble, and I started just reading the beginning, and I thought it sounded pretty good. So I decided to go with this one. As I was reading it, there were times when I really did like it, but then there were other times when I wasn't enjoying it as much, but I don't know if that was just something lost in translation or if it just was that I was tired of the battles. I'm not sure which. She definitely didn't like it as much as I did when I was in high school, but we sat and talked through it a few times during and then after, and I'm really glad that we read it together. And there are some moments in this book that I just really love. However, after reading that, I asked her if she still wanted to read the whole Odyssey or if she wanted me to read the Odyssey in the Usborne Illustrated Stories of Greek Myths, because they have an annotated version of it in here. And normally I wouldn't do that at the high school level. However, we didn't need to read it. This was just something added on in between two different units of our humanities study. And I thought it would be good for her to have some framework of some of the people that come up a lot. And so the Iliad was a good starting for that. But I felt like with the Odyssey that we didn't need to read it right then. She can read it again later if she wants to on her own, the full one. We could do it, the shorter one with that. So we did, and I was glad that we did, because then we were able to read it quicker. It did give the whole story. So it didn't leave any major things out. Of course, you miss the detail and, the feel of it, but for our purposes right now, I really just wanted her to know the basic plot points and the characters going into a study of ancient Greece. That is probably unthinkable to some of you, but I did enjoy it, and I was glad that we did it that way. I'm glad I left it up to her, because then she wouldn't come out of this with a negative feeling toward, the Odyssey after having read the Iliad, that she wouldn't be just so sick of, really, really long books that took a long time. The next book that I read, I actually DNF'd. And I did not get very far into this. It's also an advanced readers edition. I got this in a little free library. It's called An Inconvenient Letter by Julie Wright. And I've read, I think, one or two other books by her. And when I was looking back at those, I had liked them, but I didn't love them. And so it might just be, that she isn't an author for me. But when I found this in a little free library, I loved the cover. The cover is so pretty. It sounded good. For years, Marietta Stone has harbored a secret infatuation for the handsome Frederick Finch and has poured out her deepest feelings in a series of passionate love letters that she keeps in a locked drawer. So then the letters accidentally get delivered to Frederick. This is on the back, so that's not a spoiler. It's the tropes of a fake relationship and a love triangle is what's going to be in here. And I usually like both of those. So I thought this would be really, really good. But I only got a few chapters in, and I felt like the writing was super childish. It did not feel like an adult book to me. Again, that could be because it was the advanced reader's copy. Maybe if you've read this, you can let me know if it is better now. I don't know, but it did feel very childish and awkward the way it was written. But then also, as I was going along, there were things that just felt dumb. There were things that felt really unrealistic, like the way he got the letters. And I think it's because last year I read A Noble Masquerade that had a similar storyline, and that one was so good, so well done. And I kept comparing them because they felt like a similar story, and one was just so much better than the other. So I DNF'd it. I just didn't care anymore. I didn't want to read anymore. And then the last one I read was a little bit disappointing because it started out so good. So this was A Most Agreeable Murder by Julia Seals. And I wouldn't say that I hated it. Basically, this girl, Beatrice, and she doesn't quite fit into the Regency time period, you know, proper lady, and she's very interested in murder, wants to be maybe a detective. And so they go to this ball, and they live in this really interesting spot where there is a big swamp. There's spots that you can fall down into and be sucked down in the swampy mud. There's frogs everywhere, and that was an interesting setting. And then the characters were all interesting, but they have a ball and somebody gets murdered. So there is a detective there. He starts trying to figure out who murdered the person, and she helps. And there were so many times in this book that I laughed out loud in the first couple of chapters, especially. There was one sentence that was definitely a nod to Pride and Prejudice. It is a fact known throughout Swampshire that a rich gentleman is prey hunted by every young woman. It had wit throughout the whole book, and I thought the characters were interesting. I thought the way it was told was interesting. I wanted to find out what happened. I had my theories. But then what happened is it got to the end. The end felt super random. It felt like it was one red herring after another. So many things that at the end I just didn't think made sense. It felt like she was trying so hard to trick us that the story suffered. I was not into it. So I won't be keeping it, and I probably won't be reading anything more from her, just because I think sometimes if a book is just like, I don't know, I think sometimes when you think that you're going to enjoy a book because of the way it starts, you think you're going to enjoy it so much, and then it becomes disappointing at the end. Maybe that makes it feel even more disappointing. And then the ending was just so abrupt. So I couldn't recommend it. I'm sure a lot of people really love it, but I wouldn't recommend it just because I feel like the ending was super weak. So like I said, Beyond Ivy Walls was my favorite book of February. And I would love to hear what your favorite book in February was, if you've read any of these. And then also, just for fun, tell me what since I've said that my favorite fairy tale is Beauty and the Beast, what is your favorite fairy tale?